Hi, I'm Tim with the Register, and I'm here with Doug Kerr. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Thank you for being here.
You bet. Day off of school, so it worked out really
I
well.
was just going to say, yeah, so you were in after prom on Saturday night.
Yes, till about 1:30. 1:30. So yesterday was kind of recovery day, and then the district planned a day off for everybody to kind of catch up and get cleaned up so we can make the run for the end of the school year.
I was there during Grand March. There were a lot of really beautiful looking people. The couples, everybody looked great. It looked like it was a lot of fun. So,
Yeah, and the junior dads traditionally are the ones that move the cars after the kids get out. And it's somewhat intimidating when you get in a $50,000-$60,000 Corvette or Camaro and you got to go around the corner and you have this want to just hit the gas and go. But I was like, no, I'm not doing that.
What was your favorite car that you?
Oh, I drove a Mustang convertible, and it was like a rocket ship, and all the little buttons, and I didn't want to touch anything, and then do something, and there'd be a car that would pull up. I know one of the Corvettes pulled up, and all the dads were like, "I couldn't get out of that thing; it's so low on the ground." And between that and the semi, we're like, "No, the semi, he's gonna." He's gonna do his own thing.
I saw somebody was trying to get into a Corvette and couldn't even figure out how to open the door.
Absolutely. That's why it was like rock paper scissors for who's gonna get in the Corvettes. They're really low. I like the big trucks, so you can climb right in.
Yeah, no, there were a lot of really awesome vehicles. I was at Humboldt's and at Iola's, and it seems like, well, there was a Cybertruck. I think it was Ryan Sparks' car, the Cybertruck that I hadn't seen. Cybertruck up close. I've never been inside one. The semi was a hit. Corey Boren, of course.
Yes, he kind of came around the corner and set the tone.
Yeah,
like, none of us are doing that.
I liked the applause. Actually.
Yeah, that was great. The Cybertruck was interesting because we're all looking at each other, going, "I don't even know how to get in that thing.
Yeah,
like, there's no door handle." And thankfully, Ryan was there, and he's like, "I got it." And it was so weird because it pulled away, and you don't even hear it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that big machine. And so it was interesting. It was a good time. The kids have a good time. They do get dressed up really nice and
beautiful weather.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
With what we've had the last 10 days, it was just like it timed out just right.
I know. I was thinking last year it was raining, and so they just had everybody get off and just go straight into the gym, and so this year it was beautiful.
Mm-hmm. And it's a cool tradition. A lot of schools, don't do it. Like the bigger schools, it would take forever. So it's really kind of a small school tradition I really enjoy.
I would be terrified, just for the record. I remember just taking my car and just walking into the gym for prom, and now walking in front of basically everyone I ever know. I would be scared.
And my son, he drove a Mustang, and we borrowed a Mustang, and his date lived out in the country, and I'm like, "You're not driving that out there to pick her up. Yeah. We'll make some arrangements. This in town only. We're not gonna
no gravel
roads. No."
Well, the reason I wanted to ask you to come in today, and I'm glad you're here, is because I kind of wanted to touch base with our new city council members.
Sure.
And so you were sworn in January, and when you ran in the fall, it was for a write-in campaign, right? I mean, there was no one that had thrown their hat in the ring. And so I kind of wanted to ask, I spoke with Jeremiah last week and just kind of wanted to touch base with you. And so, first of all, to people who don't know who you are, I think it'd be good just to give an overview, because you moved to Iola, then moved away, and then came back. So I'm just kind of curious if you could share a little bit of your how you ended up here.
The brief version I'll be brief. Yeah. We moved here in 2012 from Florida. I'm originally from Wichita, Derby area, but a lot of my mom's family is from the Yates Center area, up to Gridley and stuff like that. My aunt and uncle were big in the Yates Center school district. My grandpa owned a hardware store, Herring Hardware, right on the corner of the square in the 80s for a long time. And then when that business closed down, he stayed over in the area. And my great grandfather was here. And so we've always been familiar with Iola.
Big, deep roots here.
Yeah. Yes. And fishing and hunting all the area. And when you're a little kid growing up and it's like, oh, we're going to go to Ken's Pizza over in Iola. And that was pretty exciting back then. I'm dating myself. Yeah. But so I'd always had a connection. I ended up going to school at Fort Scott Community College and playing football. And so after that, I actually have a brother and two sisters that went to Allen. My brother was a member of the baseball program, and two sisters that just went here. And so we've always had a close tie. And so we were in Florida, and then 2011, 2012, the housing market in Florida kind of got crazy, and the towns were getting crazy. And the town we lived in, Port St. Lucie, when we moved there, it was maybe 50, 60,000 people. And now it's 250,000 people. Wow. And it just exploded. And we had 3 young kids, and we're like, that's, maybe try something different for raising our kids. Yeah. And so there was actually a job in Kansas City I had applied for and interviewed for. And they said, well, Iola is open. If you're interested while you're in town, would you like to interview for that? And so I was like, well, sure. I remember Iola. I actually went to the movie theater back in the day when it was 2 theaters. Yeah. There was a theater upstairs and a theater downstairs. So I'm like, oh, I have great memories of that place. And so Mr. Fager was the principal at the time, and everything worked out really well. And we were able to come in 2012. And in 2016, we had some opportunities up closer to the city. My daughter is in swimming, and she wanted to be a collegiate swimmer and kind of push herself into a bigger program. And we were kind of looking for, something to provide for that, among other things. And so we moved up to Baldwin City, and I worked up there for a while. My wife worked in Eudora, and we got my daughter through high school, and she got a scholarship to go to Barton County Community College to swim. And my 2 boys, they were younger, were like, we just not city people. We want to kind of go back. We're a little slower pace, and we know everybody, and we know people at the church, and we know people at the school. And we really enjoyed, my wife, Camille, and I really enjoyed, knowing our kids are only within a mile or 2 of us at all times if they're in town. And so it was a great opportunity, just happened to come about for both of us to get jobs back in the area with A&W Co-op and with the school district. And so we jumped back in and came back. Cool. And we really, really enjoyed that opportunity to come back. And it was a really nice transition back, because the church we attend, those people were like, oh, we haven't seen you in a while. I'm like, well, yeah, we left and we came back. And so with the rec program and knowing everybody at the high school still, and David Doherty was one of my assistants when I was the head coach. He was the head football coach. So it was like that familiarity of getting back with coaching with him. And so it was a good transition, and we enjoy it. We enjoy moving back.
Feels like home.
It does. It does.
Good. And now, what is your job? You work at A&W Co-op. Are you a paraprofessional, or what is your position?
So I am a full-time teacher. And a couple of years ago, I was doing just in the classrooms helping kids. And I really kind of felt this calling for, there's more out there for these kids. Some of these kids that have just dismissed college and have dismissed a trade school, they just want a job. And it's really difficult in today's society just to say, I'm going to go get a job and survive. Yeah. You have to have some sort of training at all.
A high school diploma is
just not getting us anywhere.
Yeah.
And so Corinne Schmidt is the director of the co-op, and we sat down and I said, well, let's try this pilot program. Let's try to get these kids some skills, some life skills that maybe they can spur a new entrepreneurship business. And I said, so I have a certification in culinary arts.
And that's through OSHA, right? Is that the OSHA, or is that something
No,
different?
It's just the state. I have a state certification for FACS.
Okay.
And then my brother and my dad and family have all been in the carpentry and woodworking. And my brother actually teaches special ed down in Girard, and he works with woodworking kids. And he's like, it's really, really fulfilling when help kids that get through and teach them some trades. And so in the morning, we take our special education students and we take them into the wood shop, and we've actually built a maker space where they can learn how to develop a business making different crafts. Everything from 3D printing to, I'm sorry, not 3D printing, CNC router, to laser engraver, to epoxy stations, to rebuilding furniture. We have a fishing section where they can learn how to make a pole or make baits. And so we're trying to spur on some maybe possible small businesses for the community that these kids can get in confidence with. And then in the afternoon, I go to the culinary arts room, and I have 3 cooking classes, and we just teach the kids the basics of cooking at a slower pace than they would at the normal classrooms. And it's been really cool. We've worked on learning how to be caterers and maybe starting a business. And maybe running a food truck, and just giving them an opportunity that they may not have had.
Yeah.
Just getting that diploma and saying, I'm done. Now what do I do?
And that's where the Underhogs came from.
And so at the same time, that kind of spurred Dana Doherty. He's like, hey, I have this thing for this barbecue. Would you be interested? And I said, well, that would be pretty fun to kind of tie that into what we're doing. And it just has exploded. We have almost 50 kids in the program now.
That's an incredible story. Were you before a barbecue aficionado? Or is that something?
I was a backyard guy that it was cooked, we're good. Yeah. And so I've really had to work on my skills.
You've upped your game.
Yeah. And so my son Franklin is on the team and he's really good at it. And so we kind of compete now in our backyard of new ways of doing things. And it's really interesting because that competition world is so different than what you do just at home.
Yeah.
And it's been good for our kids and exposure to national level stuff. So
yeah, and for you too, I imagine it's really fulfilling to learn as well.
Yes.
I feel like you feel growth and excitement and learning and getting new skills.
It's been a lot of learning because being in the special ed world for the first time after 25 years was a little bit different. And so I'm learning a lot with that as I'm going through the certification process to get that done. And then the barbecue world, just knowing the business and the expenses of it. And we've really worked hard to not be a burden on anybody. We do a lot of cooking for organizations to fund our program. We're kind of self-funded because it's not a Acacia event, and so it's just been a good, cool club. We have a lot of great clubs at the school. FCCLA, they do a great job, and it's kind of an offshoot of that. But Miss Floyd does so many things for our school already. It was like, she can't take on one more task. And so I was like, I'll head that up because I don't coach a spring sport. And so most of it's done in the spring. And so it just kind of worked out and it's been fun. And the community's has really gained a lot of excitement for it. They've circled around it, and we have people in the community all the time. They're like, hey, that's so cool. I wish we had it when I was in school. Yeah. How can we help you? The community's been really supportive, and that's huge. Because going into that, it is expensive. It's an expensive hobby, sport, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, meat's expensive.
Yeah, and we thank goodness for G&W. They take care of us really well over there with helping us keep costs down. And Daniel's an awesome guy. He's very supportive of all the community, but he loves the barbecue side of it. And every time I see him, hey, what are we cooking this week? And that's kind of nice to go to a small town. You get that, where if you're in a big city, you don't.
You don't get that when you go into Price Chopper.
No, they don't care who you are. They just slide things across. And he's like, hey, do you need some buns because the other day we were at the Rotary Club and we actually sold out and we were out of buns. And I sent one of the other parents and they ran down and he's like, is this for the barbecue? And she's like, yeah. He's like, okay, go. I know you probably need it.
That's cool.
And it was really cool, cool environment to be in.
Yeah. So I hear your passion for kids, for education, for the community. How much of that was a factor for you throwing your hat in the ring for city council? Or, was that, is it a different side of what you were looking to bring to the table? Or just kind of walk me through, how did this even come on your radar?
So I'm typically a person that I believe a philosophy wise is if there's an issue, there's two types of people. There's people that are going to sit and complain, or there's people that are going to step up and do something about it. And I just don't care for those type of people
the first group
that there's just like, let's complain about this and let's complain about that. And it's like, well, you could help. I understand complaining about the Chiefs because they're professionals,
but
or
you
the
can
Royals,
control things
because we can't control anything. So that's what the world we're in. But if we have an ability to help, I would rather do that than just sit back and complain. That goes into being a coach at the school or being into special ed, just helping those kids. I could also complain that, they're never going to make it to college and why do we bother? But that's a terrible mindset. But that is a mindset that people have. Yeah. And I am more of let's try to work the problem and figure out how we can make it better.
The self-fulfilling prophecy too. If you continue to believe these negative things about your community, about your youth, they end up happening.
Correct.
They end up being real. Whereas, if you believe in this culture of excellence and growth, then kids and everybody around you kind of tend to aim for that and aspire to it.
And I think that's happened here. Like I said, I grew up, a lot of my time was spent over in Southeast Kansas. And I remember when Yates Center, when their square was full and they had 4,000 or 5,000 people, and Iola was jam packed, all the time, and it's slowly declined. And it's frustrating because it's just so easy for someone to go, well, it's Southeast Kansas. I mean, I really hate when people say that. It's just because it's Southeast Kansas. And I'm like, if you looked at a map of Kansas outside of a couple places near Kansas City, it's as beautiful here as anywhere else in the country. I mean, you have trees and lakes and woods and beautiful green rolling hills. And it's like, why are you upset? Why would people not want to live in this part of the country? And that's no discredit to Western Kansas, because I have family out there and we go out there, but it's a different.
Oh, sure, let's discredit.
It's a different look visually. You have to like that to live there.
Yeah.
And then actually, when my wife and kids came here after I interviewed, they're like, "Oh, all right, this looks nice. And this is a nice community, and so let's try to do our best thing." And I get really frustrated when people are like, "It's just Iola. It's just the way it's going to be." And we have strength. And the school has dropped in numbers, and it's frustrating. Not just as an employee that works with those kids, but just as a community member. It's like, well, that doesn't have to be the way it is. Like, it's not a foregone conclusion that we become a dried up, ghost town at some point in time. And I think there's a lot of great people in this community that are doing everything they can to make it better.
So take me back to city council then. So so it's summer fall of last year. And what happens? What kind of...
So I'm just as guilty as anybody else. When you see something that is frustrating, you get upset about it and you're like, what can we do? This is ridiculous. Or why are we doing this? And you end up asking yourself, why? But that's any community, And so the city council thing was kind of just an afterthought. I was like, if I ever got on there, what would I do different? And so then I was kind of like, well, I'm one of 8 members, and I can't directly influence change. I could be part of the change. And a few people in our community, in our neighborhood, Jim Talkington and his wife had mentioned it before. They're like, you just need to be on the council. And we spent the first time we were here, we lived next to Donna Hauser, who may be the biggest cheerleader for Iola, Kansas in the world. And she had a big influence on me as well. And her influence of, hey, we're going to get this done. If you want something to get fixed, let's get it. Let's find a way. And no one will ever accuse her of not being a hard worker for the community.
Yeah.
And so there were several people like that that we associate with in church or in the community or ball games. And so I was like, I don't know if I want to run a campaign, and I wouldn't want to talk bad about someone else in town because they're trying to do the same thing I'm trying to do. And so I was like, I don't want to be involved. And then when it came out that no one ran, I was like, well, once again, I go back to my philosophy. I can sit and complain, or I can try to make improvements, try to do my part to make improvements. And so, I was like, okay, well, let's see what happens. What do I need to do? And they're like, nothing. It's an open seat. You just go around the community. And I talked to John Wells, who lives down the street from me, and he was real supportive. I've known him for a long time, and he's like, you'd be great on it. And I was like, well, I have only 9 things to do in the spring, so why not add one more to it? But it's been cool. And I
was going to ask what you've learned so far, or how it's going. I mean, you're 4 months in, and I mean, has it been what you thought it'd be? Is it much different? And is it one thing that when I was talking with Jeremiah, he kind of mentioned it's you learn so much more about the city and just how it all functions behind the scenes. Yep. And I was wondering if that's true for you too.
Yes, and I think he had mentioned something about his tour that he went on. We went on the tour, and I don't think people realize the size and the scope and sequence of what Iola runs. From just the land size to the places we drove out to. They're like, we own this, we own that. We run this power station. We run this sewer plant. And I, honestly, we used to ride bikes on the trail all the time going south. And I was always jealous because I saw 2 giant ponds just to the west of the trail. And I've told my kids all the time, I'm like, we got to find out who owns this so we can go fishing. Yeah. And so on our tour, when we pulled up, Corey's like, this is our sewage system.
Don't
and I
go fishing.
Well, we're not going to go fishing there. And he started dying laughing because he's just like, yeah, you're not fishing. No. You're not catching anything there. And I go, I've always wanted to fish, but now that was checked off the list. So I learned a lot. I learned just the number of workers it takes to run a city, and the amount of power it takes to generate to run a city, and the different city workers and all the things that they do. And those guys wear so many different hats. In a big city, you have a transportation department, and they're not going to do one thing outside of their job.
Sure.
Where our guys, I've seen guys in the back of a dump truck, and then they're out there hauling garbage, and then they're out there on the street crew, and they're cleaning limbs after a storm. And it's like, yeah, those guys do a lot. And so that's been kind of an eye-opening experience. Not that I thought they were bad workers, but you just didn't know what, you just saw the city truck and you're like, okay, it's a city truck. But those guys work their tails off. And, it's a more of a big functioning body for a government than you would think of just off the cuff. You're like, oh, small town, there's a mayor and, one policeman that drives through town. It's like, no, it's a lot bigger than that.
One thing I remember, and we hosted a candidate forum. I can't remember when exactly, but it was a couple of weeks or a month before the election or so. And I remember when you spoke, one of the things you said you were interested in doing, or that I think you mentioned as an asset that you'd bring, was kind of tying the city closer to the school community and just the community at large. And I think you saw that as a need. I don't want to speak for you. I guess I just want to ask that question. If I'm right in that, and then two, what you think that would bring, what benefits does that bring, and kind of where's the problem there? Is it that the city, the left hand isn't talking to the right hand between the city and the school, or is the school community kind of not integrated to the fullest extent that you'd see, or just kind of, and then let's say this problem improves, or the situation, this opportunity gets addressed. What do you see as the result of that?
So I think one thing that's been on my mind, and I've mentioned it to people before, and I don't know how to take that to the next level, but and we'll just use a round number of $1 million. If we had a project for $1 million to put some entity in town that would improve the town and everybody would enjoy. Obviously, the city of Iola is not going to write a check for $1 million. It's just not going to happen. The county has to be allegiant to the whole county, not just Iola. So they couldn't write a check for it. Thrive couldn't write a check for it. And all these entities we have that are really great entities in our community just can't do that. Mm-hmm. But if we could sit down, and I'd love to build like a coalition or a group or a committee of, maybe the school district, the city council, the county commission, Thrive, Iola Industries, and the college. Mm-hmm. That's six entities that in their own right have power, but are usually looking for their own interests. And if we found some common ground on a project to work on, and everybody just had to chip in 1/6 of the cost, but everybody benefited from it in some way, I think that's the best way to govern. And as a taxpayer, if I opened the paper and it said, these groups are all on board with this. You see that in politics up in Washington. If they get one Democrat to sign a bill that the Republicans wanted, if one, then it's a bipartisan thing and everybody's happy. And it's like, it was just one.
There's a parade.
Yeah, there's a parade because it's like they work together and people are like, we love seeing that. And so I think the community would love to see that group. And I'll give a perfect example. I know there's been a lot of talk about baseball fields and facilities and stuff. And my kids played down there at the rec, and it's a great location and a great use for land that you can't really do much else with. Right. But if we built a baseball facility, a softball facility, like a really upscaled, nice facility, I think the college could utilize it. Obviously, the school district could. The city could gain revenue from the tournaments that would come in, like the one over in Fort Scott. Mm-hmm. The county would gain revenue. Iola Industries maybe could add a Quick Trip or a hotel next to the facility so that they would gain from it. And I think there's projects like that out there that everybody would stand to gain from, but the people of Iola in the end would get a nice facility. And maybe that draws an extra family into town that was, where should I live? Humboldt, Chanute, Iola, I could live wherever I want. Oh, wow, look at that facility. And then when you read the article that everybody was on the same page. And I know that's difficult because the college is looking for the college interests and the USD is looking for USD, but I think there's got to be some common ground. We could come together on certain things and say, hey, this is best for everybody. What can we all chip in? And I think you saw that with the district and the college a little bit with the park that they're planning.
Sure.
And that was a great step forward. And I was really excited to read to read that part of it, that it was 2 groups that got involved. So how can we reach out to the rest of those groups? Like, everybody's going to bring something to the table, and Thrive's going to bring all their contacts of people they know, and the district's going to be in, and the city with Corey and those guys, all the construction people they know. We probably could create a really cool coalition of a group of people that have a lot of contacts that could get stuff. Yeah. Corey Emerson is, a local guy that's doing the field. That's awesome that we have somebody in our community that can do that work. And so I think that's kind of spurred my excitement for the council, is maybe take the council a piece of that to the next level. How can we build something that can get, maybe we meet down here at the Register, so it's a neutral site, and everybody just get in a room and we'll cook some ribs or something like that from the barbecue team, and let's come up with a plan, and let's come up with a plan that the whole community can be proud of. And there's lots of projects like that. The baseball one was an easy one to get around.
No, there are a couple that come to my mind. First off, I think of the state park. I think of the opportunity that we have before us. Here's a project that has the potential to bring in tens of thousands, maybe even more, of visitors to our community. How are we marketing to them? Right. How are we enticing them to stay, to relocate, to spend their money, to come back? Not just to say, "Oh, cool, state park." Anyways,
And I think it's an opportunity for us. I do a lot of fishing in the off season, whenever that may be, whatever weekend I have.
That 1 week.
And we go to a lot of state parks. We have the state park pass, and we're big in kayaking and fishing and stuff like that. And so there's a lot of state parks we go to. There's no one there. There's some campers and some RVs. And I don't want ours to be just a glorified RV park.
And then there are state parks that you go to,
and they're slammed,
jamming. Yeah,
and so with the state park, that's a great example of a coalition of what could the college do and utilize that facility at the state park to have a class out there, or to take those kids just for the day out there and let them be kids, or what could the high school? How could they use it? How could the city do some programming out there at the park, like hook a kid on fishing, or something like that. So I think everybody could get behind it, and it's a blessing that the state park is on the state's dollar, so it's kind of come off the burden off of us. So let's maximize that and make that really an interactive park, not just because right now if we don't do anything, it becomes basically an RV park.
Well, and I think there's a warning implicit in what you're saying, and that's the idea that if we as a community aren't being cheerleaders for these places, if we aren't saying, "Oh my gosh, it's beautiful, you have to go there," or if we're not telling our friends and our family, if we're not really shouting from the rooftops that this is worth celebrating, nobody's going to do that for us.
Correct.
There's no outside marketing firm that's going to come in and say, "Oh, I have $4 million to spend on promoting Lehigh Portland State Park." It's up to us.
Correct.
This idea that kind of what you were saying earlier. Oh, well, it's just Southeast Kansas, or oh, it's just Iola. Yeah, it's a crummy state park. Don't even go out there. There's nothing open. There's no good restaurants here. There's nothing to do. Go somewhere else.
Yeah, the default answer always gets me so upset when people are like, "Oh, it's just because it's Iola."
Yeah,
and I would think from a state level, if the state could visualize our social media presence, or if we send a thing to the state going, "Hey, look what we're doing with our state park," we're making it interactive. We're making things out there. We're pumping kids out there to where maybe when they move away and come back, because this is something they want to be around. Yeah. And I think that'd be a goal of mine, is to find things like for a bait shop. We want to talk about fishing, but where do you buy bait? I think we have one that's open maybe 2 days a week.
There is no signage.
Yeah.
You can't really. You would have to know it.
Exactly. So no one from outside of town would never know where to buy bait.
Get a life jacket. Where do you go?
Exactly.
Walmart. Hey, you want kayak paddle? Yours broke. Hey, you want charcoal? Where are you going? We've got all these places, or all these opportunities. Okay, I asked. Is interesting too to hear. So you moved up to Baldwin because your daughter was interested in swimming. I asked Jeremiah about this, and there's always been these conversations circling. Iola needs an indoor aquatic facility. Iola needs a pool that's indoor. I don't know if that's something you agree with. I hear it a lot, Is that an example of one of these projects you think, hey, what if we all got together?
It is, but I do have a caveat to that, because I remember when we were here before, we did go to Burlington several times. And just being me, I don't just sit and hang out. I'm always like snooping around trying to figure stuff out or talk to people. And there is a big group of people that are against it for the fact that it's super expensive.
Yeah.
And
we don't have a Wolf Creek.
Yeah. Correct. I mean, when you have someone who can just write a check, but that community center is expensive to run, and an indoor pool is expensive with the chemicals and the heating elements and all that stuff. So I think there would have to be a really good laid out plan for that facility if I felt like that is where we want to be. Would it be awesome? Absolutely. But if it's going to be one where a couple programs are there and the high school doesn't have a team, the college doesn't, but let's look positive. Like my sister went, or my daughter went to Barton to swim. They had an indoor pool on campus. So if we got an indoor pool, could Allen pick up a swim team? Because there's lots of kids that have nowhere to go, because there's not a lot of college swim teams. I think there's 3 4-year schools and 2 JUCOs. That's it. And
we literally lost your family, to Baldwin.
Correct.
Because of one reason. It wasn't because you liked the community better, although nothing against Baldwin. It wasn't because their school system was better. It wasn't because they had better roads or lower taxes. It was because of a pool.
Yes.
And that's one of those things that I want to eliminate all the reasons for people to move away,
right.
Hospitals, healthcare, schools, community college, just all of these things that people say, oh, well, I need to go to Johnson County to find that. Now we can't be everything to everybody.
Right. And I do feel like I have a good perspective of that now, because we lived in Baldwin City, which was Gardner, Johnson County is right there. Lawrence is right there with a major institution, at KU. And those same kids were the same kids that we have age-wise, demographic-wise, that were like, there's nothing to do. There's nothing to do. It's like University of Kansas is 11 miles away. Johnson County is 18 miles away. You can't say there's nothing to do. And so I really push back when people say in Iola, there's just nothing to do for kids. Well, what is it that they want to do? Why don't we create things to get them off their phones and their video games? And then maybe we can see some things. Like when I grew up, there was always stuff to do. We made, I'm an 80s kid, so we made fun. We made our enjoyment and our entertainment. And we got to get back to that. And I don't think Iola is in a bad situation where we can't provide that as opposed to living in Kansas City.
Trust me, I put together the Around Town newsletter every Monday morning. And when I go through the list and I look at everything that's going on, I don't even include a lot of school district activities, because then the email would be pages and pages long. The recreation department has stuff going on. It's just, I think because we live in such a notification heavy society, if our phone isn't dinging or buzzing or like telling us to pay attention, our default is, well, I'm bored.
Correct.
Okay, I want to pivot. It sounds to me like one of the threats that you see in Iola is this, and I said it earlier, the self-fulfilling prophecy where you have a bad attitude and that generates bad outcomes, or people kind of are horrible ambassadors for the community. And so we end in this death spiral of just kind of talking down our community, and we all feel like this is a dead, nowhere going place. And so, hey, let's leave. What are some other threats when you think about Iola? It could be the school district. It could be the community at large. What are some challenges that we really have to address if we want to get to that next level?
Thinking about this question, I thought it might come up. I think the biggest thing is I feel like overall in general, city, district, college, sometimes I think we are more reactive than proactive. We kind of load up our rainy day funds for that rainy day. And it goes back to, I remember being in the high school band, and my junior year in the high school band, I was the football guy that ran out at halftime and played in the band and ran back in the locker room. We would raise money for the band for a bowl trip every 4 years. Well, if you're a junior or a senior, you're raising money and getting nothing out of it. That money is going to an account and if you didn't get to go on that trip, then you really were raising money for nothing. And I think the community does, from Allen to the district to the city, we all are in money saving mode and rainy day funds. And if this happens, we have this money. But in the meantime, those people that are pumping that tax money in, they're not seeing anything.
Those are tax dollars.
Those are tax dollars that are, I want my tax dollars to be spent. I don't want my money to go into a savings account. I want my property tax that is rather expensive. I want it to go into a new road or into
Otherwise,
a
you also feel like it's not doing anything.
Correct.
And you're frustrated that you have to pay it.
And I understand that you do have to have money in reserves. But I think that we need to be more proactive of, hey, let's do, and I don't want to do the whole deal where they do the 1 year and a 3 year and a 5 year plan, because everybody puts those together and very seldom do they ever stick to the 1 and 3 and the 5 year. I just want to say, what can we do now to make this an appealing place? And I think being reactive of, oh, well, Schnute got this. And it's really bad where we were in Baldwin City, because that league of schools, you had like Eudora and Paola and Lewisburg and Baldwin,
Ottawa. All keeping up with the Joneses.
Oh, it was just, what did they get? They got a scoreboard. Well, we need a scoreboard. They got a new dugout. We need new dugouts. And that's all it ever was. And Lawrence, they have Lawrence and Lawrence Free State. Well, what do they have? Well, we want that. And it was just like, how about we just get what we get and be proud of what we have. And so be more proactive of, for instance, a bowling alley. It would be cool to have a bowling alley, but it would take an entrepreneur to start one. But then how do we schedule things to make that bowling alley work? I mean, we go bowling over in Yates Center, and I love going over there because there's usually 2 other people watching me because I'm a terrible bowler. It's absolutely the worst sport I've been in my whole life.
Good environment, though. The food's great.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's a cool little, and it's a great example of maximizing an opportunity in a small town to give someone something to do.
And it's not huge. I think it's got, 8 lanes or so?
It doesn't have to be, because they're never going to have a bowling night where there's 200 people there.
Right.
But if they can provide a service for a community of that size, and they'll probably get a lot of people from Iola and a lot of people from, from Burlington that may drive down for that. And any money you bring in, like when I go over there, we're going to eat, we're going to do a couple games, and that's revenue coming in just by having a service right there that I think Iola needs to pivot to be proactive as opposed to reactive.
So now I want to push you a little bit on that. So what are some things that you think, I think we could be proactive in doing X, Y, and Z? Do some things kind of jump to the top of your mind and say, you know what, we do need to, kind of focus on, Jeremiah last week said it was curbs and gutters, something that gets on his nerves, and he kind of notices that some are great and then some are not. Are there things that you see as kind of low-hanging fruit in that sense? I
do. So this kind of came up the other day in the council meeting, and last summer my family, we went to Marysville for baseball, Legion baseball, and I'd never been to Marysville. I didn't really have a lot of experience going up in that part of the state, the Manhattan, all that area. And we drove through Wamego, and a little bit bigger town than Iola, but pretty comparable. We're driving through, and my wife out of nowhere just goes, I could live here. It was beautiful. Now, there could have been abandoned buildings burned down, and just terrible a block away. But when you visually drove through the town, I mean, you had the downtown area, they had the museum for the Dorothy, the Wizard of Oz museum, and you drove through and they had flags on the light poles.
Oh, the houses are very nicely painted.
The houses are beautiful along that road. Like I said, it could be bad everywhere else, but you pull in town and it's beautiful. You go to Marysville, same scenario. You go over the bridge for the river there, and they're into the black squirrels. They had some story about circus and these black squirrels, and they got loose from the circus. And of course, I'm reading it during the baseball game going, I'm on my phone going, wow, this is really cool. And so like every little business has a statue of a black squirrel, and they've embraced that. And people will come to that town to see the black squirrels. And I'm like, I'm not going to go look for one, but if one came out, I think that'd be pretty cool. But when you drove through town, it was beautiful, and there were potted plants everywhere, and there was music playing downtown. And I think when you live in a town that there is a highway or a main through where people pass through, you should have to do everything possible to where if one person a week goes, hey, you know what? We stopped in Iola. We had a good dinner. The town looked like it was cleaned up pretty good.
Yeah.
That's huge to me. And you can go through towns in Kansas and see that. For state weightlifting, I took the kids out there to Chapman. Now they were fortunate enough to have a tornado take out a large portion of the town, but they've rebuilt, and it's beautiful when you go through. The buildings are nice, the school's nice, the facilities are nice, and that makes you kind of go, well, I could move there, because the world we live in with businesses now and how you work, you don't have to be tied to a big city anymore.
You can be remote.
You can be remote and work anywhere. So one of my low hanging fruit would be, I said at the council meeting, I know Thrive had a grant that you could update houses in town.
Sure.
But it was a county grant, and I wasn't really aware, because it was like right when we first started on the council. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, when you come into town from any direction, there should be something that's appealing to you that make you go, hey, this is a cute town. Mm-hmm. I shouldn't say cute. This is a nice town.
Right.
But when we have houses along the main road, and I'm not upset with those people because that's their personal property. But if there's a way we could tidy those up, mm-hmm. And so when people drive through, they're like, and someone said CITF Pride did that a couple of years ago with the square. They took out all the wood out of the windows and put new windows in, mm-hmm. and everybody kind of jumped on board. And now, I would compare our downtown to any square anywhere, as just like the stores actually have storefronts, and there's housing above it, and we're maximizing the use of our square. Would we like to have a few more buildings down there? Sure, but for what we have, I think it looks really, really nice. And we're just about to get a brand new road to come through. Yeah. And I had a constituent the other day in my neighborhood when I was going for a walk, and they were really upset about that and how much it's going to cost. And I basically said, look, I don't know this for sure, but if we let that road dilapidate, what's going to stop the state from going right out by Humboldt Hill and cutting right across to the highway and doing a bypass? And then we're
thousands of people every day drive through
cooked. The city's cooked then, because then all that commerce, mm-hmm. gas and food and stuff would be gone. And you can drive through towns where you see that happen, and you see that highway go around, and the towns are done. And I'm like, let's make 54 highway the best we can. So that's never even an option on the board.
Now, that's interesting that you say that about the homes. I've been in several conversations where the idea of like a Habitat for Humanity type of organization gets kicked around, some way to help people who are on fixed incomes, mm-hmm. who can't afford new siding, who can't, correct, because their elderly can't go out and get on a ladder and paint their home, mm-hmm. in some way to make this community one where when you drive through, and we've got the traffic with 54, you've got thousands of people. Even one out of every 1,000 people said that, which is pretty low. Right. That's 999 people who don't.
Right.
But if you had 1 out of 1,000 people say, I could live here, boy, that could translate into something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like coming off, I think 169 is one of our biggest assets, mm-hmm. as transportation goes through, and as that becomes more 4-lane, as they stretch it out from Kansas City. You have a direct line to Kansas City.
We got to improve that east side of town.
We have to improve that east side of town. Yeah. Not that the businesses on the east side of town are bad businesses, but how can we make that to where you see that sign and you want to pull off because you're intrigued by something? In a grand scheme of things, I've joked with Camille Levon. She's like, "What is your goal on the council?" And I said, "Actually, if I get one thing accomplished, it's worth it, and this be a quick trip." Because we are a quick trip family. We always mm-hmm. have been. And I said, if there was a quick trip right there, the number of people that would just pull over and stop just because it's so popular. And I said, it'd bring good jobs. They pay well.
We don't need a Buc-ee's.
No, we don't need a Buc-ee's. That would be cool. But cool. If you've ever been to one of those, they're ginormous. But just a quick trip, it's a name everybody knows. And if you're coming down 169, and I've addressed this before, I'm like, okay, if you go from 169, once you get past Garnett, where there's that circle that I don't know if anybody stops there for gas. Mm-hmm. It's a long drive on the road down to Parsons. Mm-hmm. You have to get off the highway to go to mm-hmm. Chenoots, and it's off the road, which is kind of a pain. But we don't have overpasses to where if we had a quick trip right out there, or a new Casey, it doesn't have to be quick trip, but something that people could just pull off and go.
Good and maybe spot for a new hotel.
Exactly.
New gas station.
And
new restaurants.
We've talked about with the baseball parks. Mm-hmm. If you had baseball parks right out there on 169, that's a visual that people come down. They're like, oh, because if you've never been to Adam LaRoche Field in Fort Scott, a friend of mine was involved with that when it was being built, and everybody was really negative about it. And they're slammed every weekend. Yeah. They bring hundreds of people to the community, and El Charro's is right next to it, and there's a hotel right next to it, and it's been a cash cow for them. And I'm like, hey, why don't we build one of those, and then we can tie with them and have big tournaments, and anything we can do to bring revenue to the city and not on the taxpayers' nickel is my goal.
Yeah.
You know.
No, I like that idea. I think Chanute did a really smart thing with building their new high school, and that loves, and I think it's a Holiday Inn Express out there, because when you drive past there, you think, hey, this is a community that isn't dying.
Correct.
It gives you that impression, and I may only have 5 seconds while I'm grabbing somebody's road, somebody's eyes from the road. But it's a good idea. Well, cool. Well, thank you, Doug. I appreciate your time. Yeah. Thanks for talking with us about what you think are some needs and and the priorities that you bring to council. I'm excited about your term. So.
Yeah, and I just it's been really interesting too, because being a new councilman, you don't know when it's your turn to answer about things, or when, and it's been a learning process for me as well. Is there were a lot of things that were decisions were being made, and I'm like, I don't even know anything about that, so I don't want to make a decision if I don't know. For now, I feel a little bit more comfortable with the ideas of what the council is looking for, and I've talked to the county people, and I've talked to Corey and Matt in that department, so I feel a little more confidence going into a meeting.
It takes a while to get up to speed. I mean, it's a lot. It's kind of like drinking from a fire hose at first. I mean, I imagine you've got 4 years. The first year might even just be, okay, let me learn.
Let me learn what's going on.
Let me figure out all of these different. No, and I think I would much rather you approach the job with that as one of your constituents, and as opposed to the opposite, where people come in guns blazing and they shoot first and ask questions later.
Well, and that doesn't solve anything. That's just someone with filing a grievance, basically a verbal grievance, and we don't. Obviously, we enjoy the area because we came back, and now we want to make that worth it, that we came back, and for the right reasons, and we want to make it the best we can be, and I want to put my foot down on things that isn't just a trophy in a trophy case. Because 100 years from now, we go to the school and there's trophy cases in there, and no one even knows who those people are. And I want to do stuff that's more meaningful to the community.
Yeah. Cool. Well, good luck. And thanks again for your time.
You bet.